These days, I can do anything from my phone: book a vacation, order a meal from a five-star restaurant, buy and trade stocks. But maybe the most amazing thing I can do is make my dirty laundry disappear and then reappear perfectly washed and folded. I have Rinse to thank for that. I just schedule a pickup in the Rinse app or at rinse.com. A Rinse valet comes to get my clothes, and before I know it, they're back, crisply folded and ready to wear. They even do dry cleaning, which is returned hanging in a nice Rinse garment bag. And with Rinse, my satisfaction is guaranteed. If for any reason I'm not happy, they'll re-clean my clothes for free. Best of all, Rinse saves me tons of time each week. That's time I get to do something I love versus something I have to do. So if you want to save loads of time by not doing loads of laundry, remember, there's an app for that: Rinse. Sign up now and get $20 off your first order at rinse.com. That's RINSE.com.
Welcome to Rebecca Sounds Reveille. Today's show is one that you're going to want to really pay attention to. We have with us today an award-winning film director, screenwriter, and producer who's been writing and directing short films for the last 2 decades. His films include Resemblance, Undertaking, Man in the Woods, Captain Finn, and Lean. His films have won grand jury awards and festivals globally, which is really exciting because when you think of big named countries, it's just mind blowing. Italy, Hungary, France, Monaco, Sedona, Breckenridge, Soho, Sonoma, and he has written 6 feature film scripts that range from comedy to drama to even coming of age. He was an actor in Los Angeles from 1984 to 1986, and boy, does that give us a lot to talk about. He worked in television roles, and he was cast in over 100 national television commercials. He's been teaching acting for the last 30 years. This man knows exactly what he's doing. He's been a course director at Full Sail University for the last 2 decades, where he teaches directing in the bachelor's film program. Welcome to the show, Kevin O'Neill.
Well, Rebecca, wow. That was a wonderful introduction. I hope your audience feels the same way, because that was really well done. Thank you so much. Thank you for
You're
having me on your show too.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm thankful that you're here because I think that everything that you've done, you are so well-rounded in entertainment, from writing to directing to being on screen to being off screen to sharing with others what they can do to deliver the right thing to the right people at the right moment. And for me, I really believe that every frame in a film is specific to what the writer wants to convey, every word. And so I think I irritate people, Kevin, when they're watching a film with me, because if I miss a couple of frames, I'm like, rewind it, because every bit of that means something. And so I appreciate everything that you're doing. And I know that the audience is too. How did you get started doing entertainment and film?
It's a very funny story. I was a firefighter for 6 years of my life. I was taking a fire tech degree in Florida at Brevard Community College, and I saw an elective. And at this point, I've been doing chemistry and hydraulics and all this boring stuff, this math stuff. And all of a sudden, I saw acting 101, and I went, I want to do that. Not because I wanted to be an actor, just because I wanted a break from all this stuff I'd been put into for this degree. And on day one, I went to acting 101 class, and the teacher said, all right, everybody up, we're going downstairs. We're auditioning for a play. And I went, whoa, 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 whoa. No, I'm not an actor. And I had talked 2 other firefighters into coming into this, so they were ticked at me for this. And he said, no, listen, it's okay. You don't need experience. We just need background people. We're doing West Side Story. We just need people in the back. Don't worry about it. And I get down there, and they have us doing a dance number. They wanted to see who could dance and who couldn't. And these 2 firefighters are now not even talking to me anymore. Anyway, that's how it started. I did a play. And then I don't know if you've ever done theater. I'm sure people in your audience have. You get into it, and then all of a sudden you just kind of fall into this tumbling motion of this play over here. They're doing Bus Stop. They need Bo Decker. And it just started. And in the last 4 years in the fire department, I put 12 credits on my resume as an actor because I was at the
Oh, wow.
perfect place. And I also did a movie called Daryl that shot in Orlando, which was a big Simon Windsor film at that time. And I did As the World Turns with Marissa Tomei when she was a young actress in New York. She came down on this soap, and Days of Our Lives, or Young and the Restless, I forget which one. She came down from New York, and they shot it in Daytona Beach. And I got on there, and that, and a couple commercials, and I went to LA with it. I just made a decision. I really, like a lot of people, I'm going to go to LA, become a star.
I love
Uh,
it.
yeah. So
I
that was,
love it.
yeah, it's a big start.
Well, there was a lot going on in LA at that time. I was doing some background work in '86, so about the same time that you were there. I bet our paths ran cross, uh, e- each other. And it's amazing how some of this comes back. So, for example, Hulu, I was watching Hulu or Paramount. I think it was Hulu. And so I had done background work and told, everybody I was on this boxing episode with Moonlighting and Willis and Sybil Shepherd. And there it was after all these years. Because when, as a background, you get what was on TV. And if you didn't record it at that time on the VCR, you're kind of, that's it. You don't, you don't have that anymore. And now these episodes are starting to come back and you're able to go back and check things out. And I think it's amazing to go from firefighting and sort of maneuver over into film. And there is a lot of people in um, emergency services that do that. You'll find police officers have done that and firefighters. But I think that there's a creative side here that really was your calling, and you went for it.
Yeah, I think so too. I never really aspired to be an actor, but there was a part of me the second I got backstage and I did West Side Story, and I was playing Officer Krupke. They only brought me in because I was the tallest guy in the group. That was the only reason they even had me in the show. And it was a very small role. But I was backstage around these theater people and I remember thinking, I like this. These people are crazy. There's a side to them, and I'll tell you something else. It gave me an outlet for this crazy business of firefighting, which I'd already had problems with PTSD from. It wasn't easy for me to just shut down and suppress and forget. I was having
Mm,
nightmares and things. So it was a good place for me to kind of have an outlet. So when I did bust up and I started crying on stage, I lost it. I mean, I had no control because I was actually releasing something else. And I didn't know. I had to go to a therapist to find out what that was all about. But yeah, it was a big jump in my life to from being a firefighter, then going in, and all the firefighters came to support me. They helped me memorize my lines. It became a big deal at our station. So yeah, it was a big leap, but it was where would I be right now if I hadn't have done this? I don't
mhm.
know. I wonder that sometimes. I'm sure you
I
do too.
want I do, because when they say there's a fork in the road and then there's another fork in the road, and depending on which direction you go in, takes you to a completely different place. There are things that I've done I never would have expected would land me to where I'm at, even though the interest was there. I mean, you know, well, you don't know. High school, freshman year, I was hanging with the theater crowd and doing things in the theater. I was drawn to that. I'm very creative, and
Mhm.
I found that being able to write poetry and just short stories allowed me to dream, and then being able to be around others that had a creative sense
Mhm.
just sort of it just drew these things out in me, and it has never gone away. No matter what path I go down, somewhere or another, something connects me back to my real love
Mm.
and using my creative senses. And it can be in anything. And I have found a way to make it applicable to whatever I'm doing.
Mhm.
So I think you did the same thing. And I want to point that out to the audience, because if you're feeling something and you're really passionate about it and it brings you a lot of joy, pay attention to that, because these different forks in the road can take you right on that journey to where you wanted to go.
Right.
And it's just a matter of applying that dream to the situation or the things that you're currently doing. What do you think?
Well, I jumped out of a train when I was 12 years old because I was a highly sensitive little boy, scared to death of life, didn't eat in the cafeteria, ate on the playground. I didn't understand what was wrong with me, but I just was highly sensitive. And that's really truly what it was. And if I hadn't have jumped out that train, which was a door, um, I don't know if I'd have walked through all the doors in my life. I certainly was invited to become a firefighter, volunteer firefighter. That's how that started. And I didn't know if I wanted to do that, but I was of the mindset of why not? Give it a shot. And then as I'm a firefighter, an opportunity comes to be in an acting class and I go, why not? And it just kind of, here's an interesting thing. My first year at Full Sail, which is close to 2 decades ago, I was in my first year. At the end of my first year, a student walked up to me and said, I really love your class, but I don't see why you're a teacher of acting, teaching directing. What is your qualifications to teach directing? I remember
Oh
standing
my.
there almost shocked that he, and I even said to him, well, thank you for having the courage to come up and say that. And thanks for waiting until the entire class left the room to ask me that question.
Uh-huh.
But I said, you're right. I should be able to direct. And that kid pushed me unintentionally into directing my very first film.
Oh
If he
my.
hadn't said that, I had no intention of directing. Again, just like acting, it wasn't something. So I think, and I'm sure you feel this way as well, I think there's so many opportunities that we walk by because, and not out of fear, a lot of times it's just like, I don't know, that doesn't sound right. And if we went through that door, what would happen with our lives? I can't imagine if I was not writing and directing. I mean, it's absolutely insane how much stuff I write. And yet that could have happened where I just didn't do that. And I don't know who I would be, just like what you're doing in your life. There was probably a point where you're like, I have this creative gene inside of me. I feel it, but I don't know how to express it. And then I meet students and I instantly recognize from a student conversation, they have that gene. And it's not really a gene, you know what I'm saying? But it's inside of them. They have to create. It's not like we come to Full Sail. I say this, you don't come to Full Sail because there were no other options. You came to Full Sail because you have to be around this type of personality.
Yes.
This is where you belong. And you've realized it at this time in your life. You're not 12, you're all in your 20s and 30s. You've all realized this is where I belong. And it's not an easy business. It's really not. It's not easy to do what I do, making all these projects. There's a lot of work going into getting projects completed. But man, at the end of the day, I don't know. I go back to this. I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't found this, because it
Mm.
really, not only does it fill me, but Rebecca, the ability to look somebody in the eyes, because I remember this as an actor in LA. In my 10 years in LA, I remember looking at teachers going, please teach me this. I want to know this desperately how to do this. Please teach me. And now when people look at me and go, I just want to understand writing. I just want to understand directing. I go, I can help you. And they want that answer. They want to hear
Yes.
somebody say that. And I can do that. I've got that much background in it.
I love that you can do that. And something I really want to point out here to the audience, and this is important based on what you just said in reference to the students coming to you
Mhm,
and saying exactly what they did. Because when they come to someone who they idolize or
mhm,
is in a position of power, and the person that they're going to learn from that has everything that they think when that person speaks is the be all to end all. Most of us don't question that. When we go to a school, that instructor, that's the instructor. They're in
mhm,
that position of authority because they have the education, training, experience, passion,
mhm,
and what that person says can make or break somebody or their confidence or
mhm,
allow a fear that they had to really squash them for a very long time. I'll give you an example. I think I was oh, let's see, I was going into 7th grade. I was 6th grader, whatever age that is, 11 maybe,
mhm,
and I wanted to sing in the choir. Wanted to get on. It was a thing. So the instructor of the department, who this is the be all to end all man, he came to our elementary school and we had to audition just to get the class, get into the class. You had to have
mhm,
a prerequisite for 7th grade music. Okay. And I went, and he told me that I would basically never make it. I didn't have what it took. I mean, like, it was nothing, and here I am. I'm tiny. I'm a kid. That stayed with me forever. I
Mm.
was in my mind, I could never sing. I couldn't. And I would tell everybody, "Hey, I can sing great in the shower or in the car, and as long as music's really loud, you'll never be able." I mean, like, I can pitch perfect. And it wasn't until, check this out, these apps started coming out, and I downloaded one, and it trains you and teaches you, or it'll show you where you're at. And I was able to do somewhere about, from the Hawaii, I can't remember his name, and it was on pitch. The whole thing, I just kept hitting it every single time I redid it. And I thought, now wait a minute. Could you imagine where I could have been with my vocals if somebody would have just given me an opportunity? And maybe there would have, but my confidence in that and my interest was shattered at that point, and that was it. I was never going to want a rejection again. But the thing with going into entertainment and when you have a talent is not everybody is there at the same time looking for the same exact thing. You've got to keep going. There's so many actors that have said, it took me 142 auditions before I landed my first foot in the door.
Mhm. If I have 4 series that I've written. Gone Dark became very close to being as solid as it could have been. But even if I did get one of these in the door, I would be known as a newbie in the business, and I've been at this for 30 years. So
Mm.
overnight success of 30 years is not a joke. People take, many, many years to get. I worked with Bryan Cranston in a Miller Lite beer commercial before he did Malcolm in the Middle or even did Breaking Bad. And now
I
he's a
love it.
huge, huge name. But at that
Mm.
time, he was a working actor, just out doing what we were all doing. He was just a guy. I want to go back to what you said a minute ago, because one of the things that I say to my students on the very first day is, I'm here to teach you what I know. That doesn't make it right. What my perception is, or what my viewpoint is on what you do, it's just one person. You should listen to 20 people. When I lived in LA, I was in there for 10 years, and every year I changed teachers for one reason. I started to notice that after a while, because you're paying good money to be in an acting class out there, you're working 2 times a week and you're paying good money. They started to become your friend. They get to know you. They start to be less critical of you. And it's because they want to keep you there. In all fairness, they got rent to pay and so on.
Sure.
And I made a deal with myself that I would leave a teacher every year and have a different teacher every year for 10 years. So I had 10 teachers that I worked with. And towards the end, I got really, really great instructors. But the reason I did it is I wanted to have as many viewpoints on me as possible. I wanted a lot of perspective, because not any one person, again, going back to what I just said, not any one person is right. It's just their perspective of you. And if you're going to audition as an actor, you need to be prepared for the person that doesn't think you're that good, the person that
That's true.
doesn't like what you do. It's their perspective. It's not wrong. Bryan Cranston said this one time. He said, I'm sitting in the movie theater and I'm bawling and I'm watching this movie, and I look over and my friend's not even reacting. He's just staring at the screen. And at the end, I said, you didn't feel anything from that? And the guy goes, no, I didn't feel a thing. He goes, man, I'm bawling over here. And Brian said this, which was brilliant. He said, in that moment, I realized we're both right. That's how he felt it. And that's how I felt it. It doesn't make
Uh-huh.
it right or wrong. It's composed of a million things, of your upbringing and so many things in life. So I do the same thing in class. I go, look, you can hear what I say. You can go, I like what he said here. I like what Kevin said there. I don't agree with this. I will never be upset about that. How can I be? So I think anybody that would tell you you can't sing, having said it and know it now, I would have said, find another teacher. Because you know what? You
Sure.
listen to the wrong person. You got the wrong person on the wrong day. And who knows what was going on with them that day, too, on top of it.
It's true. And there's also something that, if they only have so many parts to fill, it's kind of like looking through a script. Or when somebody applies for the fire department or the academy, or you're going into a federal position and you go to apply. If there isn't the right words there, or there's a mess up, they have to have a reason, or some some kind of delineator to say, okay, let me look for the next qualified person, or one that has just their game that's just a little bit stepped up, or whatever the case may be. There may be just certain things that people are looking for that somebody else might have a little bit more finesse to or experience, and it has nothing to do with you. You might be great for this other thing. And we're not normally taught that. We take things at face value with somebody that we look up to with respect, and we say, okay, they're right. And then we leave it at that. And I really want to point out to the audience everything that you've just shared and the things that I'm sharing. I want the audience to feel and embrace the fact that be confident about what you love, what
Mhm.
you're qualified for. And if you ever are in a position where there's a door that closes and not opens like Kevin's did, the number of them, then you keep trying, keep honing your skills, keep going after your passion and getting better and better and loving more and immersing that love in everything that you're doing.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I look back at so many when I was in LA, I spent 10 years there auditioning, and there were so many times where I just got so desperate for roles because it was, the agent wants to hear you booked, you want to say that you booked, you want to have the money that comes in, there's justifiable reasons. But because of that desperation, you put pressure on yourself and you're not being truly who you are. And it took me being a director and watching people come in the room and looking at them and going, I got 20 people here. I got to pick one and I don't know who to pick. They're all so good. That's because I can only take one. And I tell actors all the time when I teach acting here in Orlando, I say, you should just go for the experience and to be remembered, not for the job. Don't make the job a goal because there are so many variables that go into why you do or don't get the job that it'll make you crazy. But I can tell you as a director, when I go and sit down and look at 20 people, in most cases, I wish I had 20 roles. And that's the crazy thing about that. But I will tell you that I have brought most of those people back for other films because of that reason, because they were good, but they weren't right for this. What is it? Is it I'm too tall, too short? Is my hair blonde? Is my hair gray? What is it that, that the variables that you have no control over and you could do nothing about, even if you knew what they were, you couldn't change it.
That's
So
true.
if you go in with the attitude of, I'm going to present, and Bryan Cranston's the one who said it best, I'm going to present the best version of me. I'm going to give it, and when my time comes, I'll be right. And that is the way you should always look at it. And you'll be better at the end of the day in your auditions. You'll be so much better. I wish I'd have known this 20 years ago. I'm not saying I would have worked more because I would have worked the amount of times I was supposed to work. It's just where it fell into place. But I think I would have gone into auditions and given much better, much more relaxed, much more Kevin than I ever did back then. That's
I
probably the most important thing.
I really love that you are sharing that because this is going to help for those that are watching and listening, and they're maybe not necessarily their passion isn't entertainment, but I'll give you the closest thing I can share is with the and this would be fire again and law enforcement. When I went to go into law enforcement, I can't tell you how many times I went through an application process to get on with the police department. And there's only so many slots open. They can only fill so many officers. I mean, there's only a budget for a certain amount, and you have to have skills in all of these different areas to get to the next part of the process. And then hopefully you're going to get hired depending on all of these things. And it could be anything. Um, when it comes down to the wire about who is a little bit more qualified for that position and who is not. And so the thing is, I eventually got hired on a sheriff's department and then later with a college police department. And it took so long for me to get there,
Mhm.
but I couldn't give up because that's what I wanted to do. And I was not going to. And so for me, it was about fulfilling my passion, just like all of the things that you're talking about now. And I like the fact that you're specifically talking to people going into entertainment because I think that really can be a make or break for some people.
Mhm.
And what you just said is if they're not looking for, and I'd like you to go over it again because it's very, very profound how you've just said that.
Yeah, I believe that where we hurt ourselves in most auditions, and I'm talking about auditions, but really when I work with my directors, film directors on their projects, for example, I say you got to walk in the room and you got to own that you are comfortable in this skin. You have to walk in and be that, but you don't have to be more than that. You don't have to be desperate. Just know that what you have is enough. But what I tell actors is, here's a really good way of looking at it. And I love this analogy. If you're always trying to manipulate yourself to become what you think they want, that's the day you didn't show up. Because think about it, you just took away every part of you. And I love using that analogy because it makes a lot of sense. If I'm adjusting, if I got a really great story for you. I auditioned for the head of NBC soap opera casting back in the day. My agent was from New York. She came in, she says, "You're going to make your money in soaps." I didn't want to do soaps, but she said, "That's where you're going to make your money." I go to read for the head, and she'd met me several times for lunch, for dinner, for at her office. She called me after I left the audition, said, "What in the heck did you do in there?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "He said you were a dry, boring man." I said, "What?" She said, "Kevin, what did you do?" And I go, "I don't know. He was kind of soft spoken. So I adjusted myself so I wasn't too big." She goes, "No, no, 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 no. You go in and be you. Don't worry about what he is. That's not his job to adjust to you. Your job is to be you so he's being a voyeur. He's watching you." I wasn't myself that day. And so what ended up happening is she says, "I've got another meeting with you. Do not mess this up." And I went in an audition. He goes, "Well, I wonder where that guy was." And I ended up doing all these big, I almost replaced Tad on All My Children, the role. I was flown to New York. Yeah, it was a big deal. I met with Susan Lucci and everything else. But anyway, I don't want to get too far into that. The reality is that it was because Kevin O'Neill didn't show up. Kevin was trying to manipulate himself into somebody he wasn't. And that's what I'm saying to your audience is just go in and give you the best you possibly can. And when that time comes, you will shine.
That is absolutely so powerful. And I
Mhm.
want to leave that right there, but I want the audience to really embrace that. And I want to have you talk a little bit about Man of Few Words.
Oh, thank you.
Uh, yes,
I'd
yes.
love to. Yeah, that's our, I mean, Screaming in the Wind is, we can talk about it another day, but I'd really love to talk to you about Man, a Few Words, because that is our most current film. It's interesting. You said something about, um, every word. I remember you saying this, every word is important. Rewind it, play it back. Well, Man, a Few Words has no words. And you know that because you've seen the film. But we went to see the film in Ohio at this beautiful Ohio vintage theater, beautiful thing. And it's because that's where my actor, the mime, is from. And we went in there and I thought, well, this is just going to be a night of celebrating him. It's certainly not going to be a night about talking about the film because there's just too much to talk about, quite frankly. Um, and then they started talking about it. And I thought I was in this small little town and I realized I'm in an unbelievably well-educated town and theater. For some reason, they just know the comments they made. This is a great example of expressionism. In Ohio, where would you ever hear those words? And words were not needed. And this is the most powerful 5 minutes I've ever seen in a film. That is really what motivated me. We sent this thing recently to festivals, and we were very lucky to get money from that screening. They gave us half the take of the audience, and that went towards paying for screening. We're literally all over the world. We're a ballot. Oh, by the way, let me just say this to your audience: if they're filmmakers, don't do your film screen submissions only in the United States. Send them outside the United States, 50-50. So I've sent to Bali, Korea, Wales, Hong Kong, Beirut, Denmark, Ireland, Germany, Turkey, Budapest, Portugal, Finland, Egypt, Bulgaria, Norway, England, and Brazil, as well as New Orleans, Canada, Oregon. This film, to me, is a film I've been trying to make for 18 years, literally. I've been trying to make a film that will just reach everyone. There's no words. You have to follow the story. It's about a guy who cares about other people more than himself. It touches on cancer. It's just there's a lot of wonderful things that I think the story does, and I feel like film is going to really impact a lot of people in festivals. I think it's going to, because when I asked in that audience of 120 people in Ohio, first time anybody had ever seen it, how many of you in here have had cancer, been exposed to cancer, have somebody in your family? Every hand went up. And I said, that's what makes it relatable. And that's the important thing of it. So I'm very proud of the film, very, very proud of it. Amazing cinematographer, Ryan. Melissa, who you know from Screaming in the Wind, was my producer. Wonderful composer, actually an instructor I work with at Full Sail, wrote the beautiful music to it. And I can't say enough about Lynn. Lynn was just incredible as the lead actor. It was a fluke how I got him. Literally left SeaWorld, got let go from SeaWorld after 38 years or 35 years at SeaWorld. And he was available just when I needed to do the film, when my lead actor, who was in Resemblance, moved to Atlanta with his family and couldn't do a film. So it was all completely meant to be. It's a crazy story. Yeah, but I'm extremely thrilled, and I do hope that if your audience lives in some of the areas, when the festival comes out, please come check it out. Love to hear what you think about it.
I'm gonna encourage that so much because I really feel like this this film is so powerful.
Mm.
The things that you've been talking about today are so profound. They're so powerful. And we do that audibly, and that's great for those of us who are, you know, we learn that way. We're auditory learners.
Hmm.
But to be able to deliver what you did through Man a Few Words with nothing but a visual, the emotions and the thought patterns that you provoke from this and evoke from this are I just can't even begin to convey that. It's just an experience that somebody is going to have to be immersed in right in front of them if they can see it up on screen. I don't think it being on a screen in front of us, right here, up on screen is just going to really make it pop. And I do encourage everyone who is listening and watching, if you get a chance to see Man a Few Words, this is one you do not want to miss at all. This is and I really wish, Kevin, that it would be something that I could see repeatedly because there is just so much more that you can glean going back and reviewing it again.
That happened actually in Ohio. We because these people paid $15 to be at this screening in this small town. We said, you know what? When we get done showing it the first time, we're going to have you give us feedback, and then we're going to show it again. And then I kept joking, saying, and then I'm going to show it again, and I'm going to show it again. We're going to show it about 5 times. I didn't do that. But every time we'd show it again, they'd say, you know what? This time I saw this is what you just said. This time I saw this, I didn't even see that. And that I see that in movies all the time too. But in a 5-minute movie, people were seeing things that they didn't catch the first time, which was very powerful. And I thank you for that, Rebecca, because I tell you, it means a lot. Your background means a lot, and your words mean a lot. And I do feel this way. I mean, I've loved my films. My wife always says to me, every time you do a movie, you say this is your best movie, and I go, I have to believe that, because if I don't believe that, I don't make another movie. I mean, I wouldn't say to you, well, this isn't as good as the last 3 films. Then what's the point? you know, I have to believe it, and I think all creators
Yes.
have to believe that.
And I think developing the more you do and develop and your creativity just it sort of expands and I want to say too there's something in time and what you can deliver with this in 5 minutes is really amazing. And let me just try to put a perspective out there for someone. Now, if you've been through this would be another sort of well, it's a military or paramilitary type of example. But you can apply this to basically anything. Think about how long 70 seconds is. And
Mhm.
you may not understand the length of that 70 seconds until you're trying to keep your chin above a bar to meet minimum requirements to get through something. So that's what I had to do in the Marine Corps is what's called a flex arm hang. And you had to hold yourself for 70 seconds, with your chin above that. And that was what felt like eternity.
Mhm.
So
I'll give
5
you
minutes,
an
if yeah,
Well, I'll give you another example. I was in the Army, and I remember going into they used to do CS gas training where you went in, you took your mask off, and they made you breathe in the CS gas, so you experience that whole thing. And I don't even know if they do it anymore, but we went in and did that, and it was 10 seconds. That's all it was, and it felt like 5 minutes. It was the longest 10 seconds of my life standing there trying to get out of that room. You couldn't see, you were blinded from all the, from all the chemical. So yeah, there's that as well. But you're right, you're absolutely right. Being on a bar and hanging there for 70 seconds sounds like a very short amount of time until you do it.
that and so that's my point with this. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning is that every frame means something. So in 5 minutes for you to be able to have delivered what was in your mind, for you to write it, for you to direct it, for you to put it into every step that it takes to have conveyed what you wanted to and deliver it in 5 minutes, it is remarkable, and I am really excited about this. I I just want so many people to connect with you so they can see the things that you're doing. They can have an opportunity to find out where this is being seen because if they're following you, you're going to be promoting it on your social media and other things. And not only that, but because of what I know and I have seen that you've delivered so far, they're going to want to see more too, just
Mm,
like I am.
yeah. Well, I am on TikTok, as you know, and if that's something we could put up later. Also, my webpage, I would love to put my webpage up
Yes.
so they could see that as well. And that way they could kind of follow where I go because I will post obviously on TikTok um, where the film is going to be screening. I will absolutely put advertisements up. We are in Melbourne this weekend. We are in New York this weekend, and that'll be one place to see because that to me that's where you get your audiences to come out in genuine more it's funny, you and I talked about this. They look at how many numbers you have to see sometimes whether your film will be in a festival. If I had
Uh-huh.
51,000 people, I think I would be in more festivals. It's a terrible thing to say, but I really believe that that is an influencer number for them. They see it and they go, yeah, that person's going to fill seats at the end of the day.
That's true.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we are in a society where that really seems to be kind of a thing. I wanna thank you so much, Kevin, for being with us today, for sharing so much insight, so many things I think that people are gonna be able to take from this. The minute they've heard this, and even after they've listened to everything that we've talked about today, they're gonna go be able to take these things and apply them to their life and move in a direction that's gonna make their life healthier and happier, and I thank you so much for all of the time that you've shared with me in learning all about you, and same with the audience here today.
Well, thank you so much, Rebecca, for having me on your show. It's been wonderful, and you always make it so easy to be on these podcasts because it's not always an easy trip. You make it very, very easy. I would encourage anybody that is listening that wants to be on with you, definitely do it. She's really good at this.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you. And I
you.
want to thank all of you for tuning in to another episode of Rebecca Sounds Reveille. You need to get a hold of Kevin O'Neill, KevinO'NeillProductions.com. You can find him, Kevin O'Neill Productions, on TikTok. You'll find him on Facebook. And if you, for some reason, were not being able to locate him, go to where I'm at because I'm following him everywhere and you're going to find it that way too. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Make sure you share this with all of your friends, family, your loved ones, everybody you know on social media, and everyone you don't. Thanks for tuning in.